All right, shalom, y'all. It's Brother Michael Israel here. You watching Spiritual Combat. I'm here with Sister Onleilove, and if y'all could, real quick, give me a thumbs up if the sound's good on there. And with that said, how you doing, Sister Onleilove?
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom is almost going to be sundown here on the East Coast, and I know over on the continent is already Shabbat. So I'm doing well, and I hope everyone is doing well and preparing to rest.
I can't wait because it's been a busy week for me, and it's like the Shabbat is just a lifesaver.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
Sister, you just got back in the U.S. What was it, a couple weeks ago, right?
Yes, I just got back July 1st from about 2 months in Ghana, but 2 weeks of those 2 months spent in Nigeria.
Okay, and we're going to talk about all that in a little bit, but if you could just let all the people know real quick some of the events you have coming up.
Yes, brother, and before we do that, can we just open up with a quick prayer?
Yeah, let's do that.
Hallelujah, Yah. We just come to you just thanking you for your Shabbat. We thank you for the opportunity to fellowship together, even if it's over technology. I thank you for Brother Michael and the Spiritual Combat ministry. I thank you for Boom Ministries that he's with. I thank you for all the righteous Hebrew ministries that are taking the full holistic good news of your redemption and your salvation of your people and the stranger to the four corners of the earth. And so, Yah, we just ask that during this time you be glorified. We ask that the technology work. We ask that I decrease and you and me increase. And we just ask that something that is said here tonight would give someone a divine revelation of your love for them. Yah, we just say to have your way. We just invite your Ruach HaKodesh into our midst, and we ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. So be it. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right. So yeah, sis, if you could, while people are still coming in, talk about some of the events that you have coming up. The first one I pulled up here, it says, join us for 3 days of fasting and prayer for revival in the Hebrew community, Tuesday, July 24th to Thursday, July 26th.
Yes. So myself and Mother Angela Malaka Phillips, who's almost done with her 30 days prayer challenge that I encourage all of you to check out on her page or the Hebrew Nation Building page every morning at 7 a.m. We are coming together just to call a 3-day fast for our Hebrew community. And when we say revival, I think many words have been kind of co-opted by the Christian church, but all we mean with revival is that we would almost get up and not only recognize our identity, but be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh so we can heal, so we can get delivered, so we can spread the truth to others in a more powerful way. So if you want to join us for that fast, it will be a liquid fast since it's the summer, and there will be prayer times, about 3 prayer times a day, led by different people, including Angela Malaka Phillips, while we're fasting. And the brothers Mo and Josh from Hebrew Nation Building will be joining the fast. And it's not really any organizational fast. It's for whosoever wants to fast. There are many who are doing fasting and prayer in Israel now, and I'm so happy to hear it, from California to Ghana, to sisters online. I'm seeing a lot of fasting and praying going on. And so we just ask you to join us, because I really think Yah is trying to do something awesome among the awakened Hebrews.
Okay, and then the next event is the event in Atlanta, the Proverbs 31:25 Women's Conference. It says, strength and honor are her clothing. If you could talk a little bit about that.
So I am so humbled and honored to be a part of this event under Boom Ministries, hosted by Lady Ema Brown, the wife of Evangelist Majors, and also hosted by Lady Janessa. They are praying and working hard for an awesome experience for the Daughters of Zion. And I'm just so humbled to be the speaker that day. We talked the other day, and just it's going to be phenomenal due to their hard work and their prayers. But there is a new location. So if you've registered, please note that, and you should have an email saying that. And if you haven't gotten to register, there is a wait list. You can add your name to the wait list. There's a new location to accommodate more women. And so we hope that you can make it to the ATL for what I know is the first of many powerful women's conferences. So we as the women in Israel can fellowship together, laugh together, keep Shabbat together, and really grow in our relationship with Yah. And I just thank Boom Ministries and Lady Emma and Janessa for all their hard work and for the invitation. Can't wait to come to ATL.
Okay, and that is an all women's conference, but what
Yes.
Pastor Majors did to accommodate the men also is on that Friday, there's going to be a men's conference. So on August 10th,
Yes.
starting at 7 p.m. is going to be a men's conference. And that dude in the middle looking like a soldier, I think that's me. And I'll be and I'll be teaching there along with the other brothers you see up there. We're going to be chopping it up from a male aspect on relationships. And so it's going to be a good event. So if you could get out there, it'll be a good event for husbands and wives alike. All right?
Yes, brothers, you can come too, so your wife doesn't have to travel alone.
Exactly. All right. The next event is Reclaiming the Throne Conference. So it's the Reclaiming the Throne Conference is basically kind of like a pre-release event for the documentary Reclaiming the Throne. And if you could, Sister Only, could you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, I'm also humbled to be a part of the Reclaim the Throne documentary that is really focused on Hebrews in Africa and our identity here and throughout the diaspora. Is being produced by Ronald Dalton of Hebrews to Negroes and Joshua Cullens and Morris Brown of Hebrew Nation Building. Evangelist Majors, Pastor Richardson Kelly, Rabbi Akwete Amam, myself, the brothers from Hebrew Nation Building, Ronald Dalton, Hulda Daweed and her husband of the Ark. Many different speakers will be a part of the documentary, and they have been filming. So there is some footage that's going to be shared in New York and New Jersey that hasn't been shared anywhere else. Also, for the Saturday conference, since it is Shabbat, there will be no buying or selling, but we will be praying, learning together. We are all speakers are bringing new information that hasn't been presented by us yet. And I might have some pre-advanced copies of my book to give out. And there is a promotion happening that the person who sells the most tickets gets to go to dinner with Hebrew Nation Building and ask them questions. And I'm excited to welcome everyone to Harlem, where I live now. And in New Jersey, there's also a conference date. So you can go to both or just choose one. You need to go online, though, and buy your tickets because there's a limited seats available at each venue. Please, family, don't wait till the day before to buy your tickets. And definitely don't try to buy your tickets on Sabbath because we won't be selling them and we'll have to send you home. So buy your tickets beforehand. It's just $25 per day. There'll be lunch on the Shabbat. On Sunday, there'll be light refreshments. And if you want to be immersed, also known as baptism, Hebrew Nation Building elders will be baptizing people after the Thursday event at a nearby beach. And so you can email the email on that flyer to sign up for baptisms, and then there'll be some pre-teaching and day of prayer and fasting the week before to get you spiritually ready to be immersed. Because I have to say this, I know it's a teaching going around that, you don't need to be immersed and the Torah is immersion. No, immersion or baptism came from the Hebrew practice of mikvah, which was a purification bath, like when you sinned and you needed to repent or before you got married. And so there's nowhere that says you don't have to be immersed. And so that is,
I haven't even heard that one. That's a new one to me. I
yeah.
hear something new and crazy every other week.
Yeah, there's a lot of camps teaching that, and sadly, immersion is necessary. Yeshua had to be immersed. It's something commanded in our scriptures through the, ritual bathing after impurity, and it's one of the first public steps of declaring, your faith. And so let's not, follow some commandments and not others. So if you want to be immersed, also email about that. But it should be a wonderful time.
Okay. And the next one, it says, own ancient Hebraic marriage customs, West African marriage customs in Yah's kingdom. Okay.
Yes, last Sunday I did a class called Ancient Hebraic Marriage Customs, West African Marriage Customs, and Yah's Kingdom, where we looked at ancient Hebraic marriage customs from scripture, but also from archaeology and history. And then we actually saw that the people who are still practicing these engagement and marriage customs today, almost in a perfect form, are Hebrew tribes in West Africa. Right. And then we also looked at how Yeshua in the New Covenant or the New Testament, not the New Covenant, Renewed Covenant, or new, commonly known as the New Testament. In many of his parables, he was alluding to these Hebraic marriage customs. One example of that is in Hebraic marriage, when you wanted to propose to a woman, the potential bridegroom and his father would go and knock on the door of the woman's house. And if she opened the door, that meant she would consider his proposal. If she didn't open the door, then brother, sorry for you. But then we see that is in the Hebraic marriage. And in West Africa, in Ghana and Nigeria, they have the knocking ceremony. When a man wants to marry a woman, he comes and he knocks, and it's the same process. But then Yeshua says in Revelation, I stand at the door and knock. Whoever opens can sup with me. And when in an engagement in Hebrew, in our land or in West Africa, when she opens the door, it also means she's going to have a meal with the man. So all throughout Yeshua's ministry, we see these allusions to the marriage. And so we're going to talk about our marriage to Yah and how that shows up and how our people get married today. If you want to own the video, which is up for free on Hebrew Nation Building and was given to about 306 students for free. But if you want to own it, to download it and have the PowerPoint and the pre and post readings, you can email info@propheticwhirlwind.com. And we're just asking a small donation of $10 just to be fair to those who signed up for the class on time. But you can watch it right now for free on Hebrew Nation Building, and let me know what you think about the class. I would love to hear feedback.
And if you could, because I went to your website, I showed them your email address, but if you could talk a little bit about your website, your upcoming book, Prophetic Whirlwind.
Yeah, so I have a teaching ministry that I founded in 2014 at the encouragement of two elder mothers who invited me to do 2 workshops on the African presence in the Bible, which we know was all so-called Black people, at Trinity Wall Street, the oldest church in New York City. And after, they said, do you have a book? Do you have a website? You know how the church mothers could be. So I said, no, I don't have any of it. So I launched Prophetic Whirlwind in 2014. And Prophetic Whirlwind, the name is based on the speech, Meet Me in the Whirlwind, by Marcus Garvey. And in that speech, he talks about our biblical identity and our restoration. He was a man of great faith and had many Hebrews helping him build the UNIA. My book, Prophetic Whirlwind, Uncovering the Black Biblical Destiny, will be pre-launched in New York City. We're getting that ready on August 14th. And it will fully be out in September. But in that book, I profile 15 tribes in Africa that have Hebrew origins. And I also go into proof about the Blacks, that the people in the Bible would be called so-called Black today. And then we go into a history of the Hebrew movement in the United States, because many people think this is new, but the oldest Hebrew church in America with Hebrew written on the pews that keeps Passover every year. Is the first African church of Savannah, Georgia, built in the 1700s. And I believe Pastor Richardson Kelly, his ancestors built that church, and now he's a Hebrew minister, and it still stands today with the Hebrew writing. We'll go into how the founder of Kojic actually was a part of the Hebrew ministry before he started Kojic. So we'll go into how much Hebrews literally helped build the UNIA. Like Marcus Garvey was the charismatic leaders, but when it came to writing the Constitution and the hymns, it was many Hebrews doing the legwork. And then we'll go into what this means prophetically and what this means for our personal relationship with Yah through Yeshua. So that book will be out very soon. If you sign up for the email list, you'll get a free PDF of books, articles, videos, films on Hebrews in Africa. I compiled the list based on my sources. My book is being published by The Voices imprint, and that's an imprint backed by Colleen's College, and ironically, it's a Christian college, but Pastor Leroy Barber founded The Voices imprint to really give people of color of faith a chance to tell our stories. I'm the first author on the imprint, and I'm just humbled that this Christian pastor's let me tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I want to just shout out and thank Pastor Leroy Barber for taking a courageous step. I spoke to many publicists and many publishing companies that, they were excited at the onset, but I knew once they read the full truth, it was going to get edited until, our truth was hidden once again.
Yeah. All right. And next, if you want to, we have Operation Joseph.
Yes.
Can you talk on that a little bit? And while you're talking, I'm going to be going through some of the pictures that she took from over in Africa. So.
Yeah, so I spent 2 months in Ghana and in Nigeria. It's been my third trip to Ghana, my second to Nigeria. I've also been to Togo and Morocco. Each time I go, I try to visit the Hebrew family over there. And I want to thank Elder Cletus Okoro. I want to thank Richmond Osei Antwi. I want to thank Rabbi Garvel and all the Hebrew family that welcomed me. When I went this time, I saw needs before, but it became very blatant that our people were in need. I became interested in Hebrews in Africa because they are the missing link in our identity, because no transatlantic slave ships left from Israel. So when you say, we're the Hebrews, there's a lot that happened between 70 AD and 1620. And these people are the missing link. And I have a big passion about uniting the two sticks, Ephraim and Yehuda. After the bones rattle in Ezekiel 37, the two sticks are united. And so while I was over there, an elder in Sefwi opened up to me about some of the influences that are coming. Sadly, we may not build with Hebrews in Africa, but white Jewish people do. And many times what happens is, though they're bloodline Hebrews, they will convert to some form of rabbinical Judaism. And what that does is it replaces the indigenous Torah culture in their culture with rabbinical Jewish culture, to the point where some of us think they're converts. So when I really saw the needs, I spoke to Brother Joshua Collins of Hebrew Nation Building, and next thing I knew, there was videos, there was a GoFundMe, and I want to send a huge thank you to everyone who donated. I want to thank the elder, Michael, who sent 40 good translated leather Bibles to a congregation in Obu Gad on a king's compound where the people had ripped up Bibles. I want to thank everyone who donated, from the largest to the smallest donation. It all mattered. I want to thank Sister Esther Brown and Angela Malaka for praying and asking y'all to breathe on it. To date, we've raised a little bit under $15,000, and we've also given out over $13,000. And in August, we'll be giving out the remaining money. We've given to 35 different Hebrew ministries, orphanages, a community organizing group, Hebrew leaders in various places. And this is a picture of one of the orphanages we gave to. And I, when we go into my testimony, I spent part of my childhood in foster care. So it really warmed my heart to be able to go to an orphanage and have Shabbat dinner with them and give them a donation. And so I want to thank everyone. Brother Josh and I are going to put together an update video with the various thank you videos and photos that we're getting from all the congregations. That's a Hebrew congregation on Shabbat last week praising Yah for the donations that we sent. And with every donation, the leader had to say, this came from Operation Joseph, which is a collective of African American Hebrews. We love you and we stand with you. The Ugandan Jews that were not allowed to do Aliyah to Israel, we were able to give them a donation and let them know your people are with you. We don't reject you and Yah doesn't reject you. And so the wells are being built. One community organizing group in Igbo land that trains people on economic development and faith. They're going to be able to get a larger space for their school. It's just very humbling, and all the glory goes to Yah and his people. The response has been tremendous. And again, I just thank you all, and we will have a larger update and a report of everywhere that funds went, because I'm very big on integrity. And so I've been administrating the funds and organizing a database so we can keep track of where things go. And Yah willing, we hope to visit many of the places we donated, because we have to unite, because there's a scramble to gather the lost tribes. And if we don't unite, our people will really be taken advantage of and our history will be erased. So thank you, Toda. Toda, thank you so much to everyone who donated.
Okay. And if you could, Sister Only, for those who don't know your testimony and you know, some of the trials you went through as a young girl, could you go ahead and tell that testimony? And I might interrupt you a couple times just to ask you to elaborate on certain points, but if you could, you go into that.
Yes. So I love to usually share my testimony, because anytime someone's standing before you to teach or to do a project, I think you need to know where they came from. The reason I'm passionate about the lost sheep is basically I know what it is to be lost, not just in my Hebrew identity, but lost as in you don't have a family. When I was born, it was a struggle for me to even be born. I had a twin brother who died in the process of birth. And growing up, though, I had a normal childhood in East New York, Brooklyn, which is a very rough part of Brooklyn. Spent most of my childhood in pink houses, projects, and my mother married my stepfather when I was 7, and we did move to Queens, and we lived in a house, and things were very good, very normal. And then my stepfather lost his job, and within a short period of time, we went from living in a house to living in hotels to entering the homeless shelter system. And one day my stepfather was out looking for work so he could get us out of that situation. And my little brother and I, my little brother was only 10. I came home from school and there was a social worker standing there in the shelter room to take my little brother and I into foster care. And we were literally ripped from our mother's arms and taken to the Bronx, where we had no family. My bio father didn't know, my family on neither side knew. My stepfather came back to find his family gone.
And just real quick,
mm-hmm.
that, like what you said happened with the social workers breaking families apart, that's by design. Because
yes.
They wouldn't do that to their people. There'd be something in place, for them to help them out. But by design, they want those families broken apart.
And yes, and I'm gonna share something. So one, we hear about the immigrant kids being ripped from their parents, and we need to know that one is not new for the immigrant kids, but two is definitely not new for us, whether it's slavery, but also foster care. I had to testify before the UN Committee for People of African Descent, and that was the committee that said we deserve reparations. And before I testified, 2 sisters who also grew up in foster care, but have a phenomenal organization called Foster Parenting Advocacy for foster children, foster parents, birth parents. because they saw the corruption in the system, and they literally have a YouTube video about how many Black kids are being sold. And when I went into foster care, there were my picture, they needed a picture of me to put in a catalog, because they would have fairs where people would look through the catalogs to get kids. And I learned that as an inquisitive little girl. But thank y'all, my grandmother stepped in and she shut it down. But that was the plan for me and my little brother. And so when I testified before the UN, when you hear the UN saying we deserve reparations, one of the cases for that is what happened to Black foster children. I testified about Black women and the incarceration system, because many Black women, especially pregnant Black women, are getting beaten by cops. And that goes into, by trade, I'm a community organizer and political advocate. And so it is by design. Malcolm X's father tried to take over the New York foster care system, working in it, because Malcolm X and his family, the same thing happened. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was systematic and by design. All I knew is that I was being ripped from my family. And so my grandmother and aunt, when they found out what happened, they rushed to take us into kinship foster care. But there is no money with you being with a family. There's money with you being adopted out. So my grandmother would constantly have to fight harassment. And so I went through that as a child. So when I say Yah is the Yah of the orphan and the widow, Yah is the Yah of the lost sheep, that we should be donating to orphans, I'm not just saying little buzz lines. I literally know what it is to not know where you're going to sleep. I literally know what it is to be ripped away from your parents and everything you know. And only having Yah to depend on. I wasn't raised in a religious home. My father wanted to be a Hebrew, but he told me he was too scared, because in New York, we get a little overzealous as Hebrews sometimes. And so I was not raised with religion. But at 10 years old, when I was living in kinship foster care in the projects of East New York with my grandmother at the height of the crack epidemic, like I'm totally immune to gunshots, like I've been in the Army, because that's the environment I grew up in. At 10 years old, I felt something telling me to read the Bible and pray morning, noon, and night. I now know that that was the Ruach. So I took one of my grandmother's old King James versions of the Bible, and she didn't even go to church anymore because of all the hypocrisy she saw. But I started reading the Psalms and praying morning, noon, and night, and my family watched me do that from 10 to 14. And at 14, my Aunt Frida looked and said, someone needs to take this girl to church. They didn't even know what was going on. And so I took myself to church, and I did accept Yeshua as my Savior and the head of my life, even though I always believed the people in the Bible were Black, but I didn't get the whole connection that the lost sheep was me, the lost coin was me. I knew it, Hebrews are all over New York, but I did accept Yeshua as my Savior. Tuesday, I was immersed, and I was full steam ahead. I say the day that I accepted Yeshua, it wasn't just my soul that got saved from an afterlife of torment, but it was my spirit, soul, and body that was saved from what also happened to me in this life. And it totally changed me, and y'all made it possible for me to go to Penn State on a scholarship, for me to go to Union Seminary, Columbia School of Social Work. Now I'm the one, that's advocating for young people, and advocating for affordable housing in East New York, and standing up to the mayor of New York, advocating, and people are shocked because they're like, wait a minute, you're from the community, almost like you're not even supposed to be in these closed door meetings advocating. And I don't say any of my accolades or work to give me glory, but to give Yah glory, because only Yah could take a formerly homeless child and then have her in City Hall in private meetings going back to bat for affordable housing, and using my story to do it. We had the largest public march in East New York history for affordable housing, and I stood in front of over 1,000 people from community, from labor, and I shared my testimony. And there were men from building trade, labor unions crying. And again, that doesn't give glory to me; it gives glory to Yah.
Did you know your biological father?
Yes, I did know my father. But when instead of taking me and the only reason we were put in foster care, I have to say this, my mother never hit me. She was like a hippie, Black mother. Obviously, my name is Onleilove. That's my real name. My father gave me Chika, which is Ibu and Ewe. And, she didn't believe in hitting me. You can look at pictures on my Facebook from a little girl. I never missed a meal. It was just poverty. And now in foster care, they actually have something called preventative, where if the only thing that's happening is a family has financial issues, they will give them assistance so they can stay together and get on their feet. I was in a meeting with the Administration for Children's Services high commissioners around all these immigrant kids that they're going to put in foster care and adopt out for money. And I called the meeting with heads of social service agencies because I knew what they were going to do to these immigrant kids 2 years ago before it came out in the news. And in the meeting, I share my story. And this white man sitting there, and he looks at me. He's a high commissioner in ACS, and he said, "I'm sorry. I know this is a business meeting." He said, "But I have to apologize." He said, "What happened to your family was wrong, and will you forgive me?" And I'm like, I'm Hebrewed out by this time. I'm keeping the feast. I'm wearing the fringes. I have the head wrap. I did faith organizing, even with white rabbis, and they knew Onleilove's a Hebrew. But Yah was saying, "Okay, are you really real? Well, what you say you believe?" And I said, "You know what? I forgive you. Because what you all meant for evil, Yah meant for good." And so I wanted to just share that part, because this is not about just saying we have a belief, but it's about how can you really walk it out.
Now you said you did know your
Oh yes, I knew my father. Sorry, Greg. Shout out my parents. Also, I call them by their first name. They're very unique, but I did know him. We were estranged. I was estranged from all my parents for many years because when my mother lost her children, that sent her into a spiral. And if you can pray even for her now, she's still trying to get over what happened and many years ago. But when I went to live with my grandmother, she broke all the rules and she let my parents stay in my life. So now, my stepfather follows me on Facebook. He keeps up with everything I'm doing. All three of my brothers are believers. My little brother, Daryl, who also was homeless, is going to be on the Reclaim the Throne soundtrack. He did my website. My father and I, we speak. When I was in Nigeria with the Igbos, because they loved that my name was Chika from the womb, he's told me I gave it to you from your heart. And so they're in my life. All my siblings now are in my life. I lost one brother at birth, and Yah gave me 4. So they're in my life, but we're putting back together our family because of what happened. And I just think and give Yah all the glory, because now I can say, I know where most of my family are, and I can, talk to my father and my stepfather. But that's only Yah, because I wouldn't have been able to say that a few years ago.
Now, I was watching one of your videos, and you were talking about. Now, I don't know whether it was your father or your stepfather, but you were just talking about one of them was driving a PATH train, and.
Oh yes.
Yeah, if you could tell that story.
So that was my biological father. Him and my mother broke up, and then the whole thing, he was in my life, and then I went into foster care. And, there was a lot of misunderstandings where he did try to go to the agency and get me at 10. Of course, instead of just releasing his daughter to him, there's all these hoops. And the agency didn't handle things well. So that created more a breakdown in our relationship. And so many years we didn't talk. And ironically, I looked the most like him. He was an organizer in Harlem with the Nation of 5 Percenters, but he wanted to be a Hebrew. So we would bump heads, I think, because I'm like the girl version of everything I do now. He's like, I used to do that when I was young, or I wanted to be a Hebrew. And so for many years, we just didn't speak because I felt like, okay, I was left hanging out here in foster care. You have a new family, all these things. And then, it's a Sunday. I visit my grandmother's house, and this was like maybe in 2010. And I came into Torah and fully my Hebrew identity 2012. So this was like one of my last Palm Sundays. So I have the palm. I'm coming from my grandmother's house. I have my Bible, and the train reroutes, and so I have to get out off the A train instead of going straight to Harlem. So I get out, I'm going in the train station, and my father works for MTA, and I see him, and I have the opportunity to walk past because he hasn't seen me, or I can speak. And I felt the Ruach saying, if you're serious about what you say you believe, you need to speak. So I spoke to him, and we hadn't seen each other in so long he didn't recognize me. And then from there, that's how the relationship continued to build. And it's just a miracle because so much happened, and things happened between him and my mother. And maybe one day I'll tell the full testimony, because you're not always forgiving because the person didn't do something wrong, or you're running from the wrong. Wrong was definitely done that I won't speak on, but you're going to forgive because of Yah's grace. And so, all throughout my Africa trip, he was texting me and just checking in, and so proud. And I now know that some of the things I was doing, he tried to do many years ago. And so that's the power of Yah's redemption. To be honest, me keeping the Shabbat, keeping the feast, speaking at these conferences really wouldn't mean anything. Wearing fringes, wearing a head covering, it doesn't mean anything if I can't forgive and reconcile.
And if you could talk about, the importance of going through the pain as far as facing, because that's something I see, and it's funny because that's something I see with a lot of these people. They're pushing the language real hard, or they're pushing something else, and what I do, I begin to analyze them, and I see that, hey, they're just putting this up because they really don't want to face themselves or the hurt and stuff like that.
So I don't know about anyone else, but I'll be honest with myself. So I went into ministry pretty early. I was doing a lot in the Christian church. When I left the Christian church, I was working for, it was under a black pastor. It was a very prominent church on Park Avenue. I was their young adult leader. Denominations were battling, like, who's she going to be ordained with, including white denominations. I was entrenched in Christianity, planning conferences, writing for magazines. I was in it. I was even in a Christian Greek organization. But the thing is, when I went to seminary to study Black liberation theology and justice in the scriptures, you have a lot of time to think in seminary, and to think about the word, and to think about things like the language and all of this and all of that. And when I had time to think, everything crashed that was happening to me. It started in college because I was in a rural place. And one thing that the church does, and even the Hebrew community sometimes, in many different faiths, is that we use our faith as a mask to hide what's really going on. Wow. And I said, well, if Yah and his Ruach is so powerful, then I need to be able to use Yah and the Ruach, not as a mask to hide the pain, but to face it. So through journaling, through counseling, I believe in counseling. And, I found a biblical counselor who was trained as a psychologist, but a Black woman from Brownsville, which is close to East New York, Bible believer. And they will respect that, you're a Hebrew because, you're still in the word, where we had to face the pain. I even had to face the pain of losing my brother, because before my first little brother was born, I would ask my mother for a brother. I didn't want a sister. I wasn't asking for a sister. I have a sister that I love, but I wasn't having this urge. But as a little girl, I remember having an urge for a little brother, and my mother wouldn't say anything. And she, lost two children that were born as twins, her first and her last born. And so, I had to face through many different things. I had to face the pain, and I still am dealing with the pain, but I'm facing it. And many of us use religious devotion. Even many people went to seminary to run away from pain. But
And,
if you
and one of the big things that I always point out is when you look through the whole word, that's that's what the whole word is pointing you to, is facing yourself. And when it says a stiff-necked people, it's talking about people who don't want to face that pain. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look even at the Psalms, you see pain, and it's no mistake that the Ruach led me to the Psalms first. The Ruach didn't lead me at 10 to Deuteronomy 28. That might make some people mad. He didn't lead me to John 16. That might make some Christians mad. He led me to the Psalms, and I think the rawness of just facing the pain, or reading in Psalm 27, though my mother and father forsake me, Yah will take me up. I think that that's where I needed to be. And I'm very passionate that we, even as Hebrews and Torah, this captivity has caused a lot of pain. My family on my mother's side was owned by the largest slave-holding family in America. Do you know when I got to seminary, one of the white administrators who worked at a seminary housed in my seminary was a descendant of the people who own my family,
Wow.
who wrote a book and documentary about it. He and I worked in the same field, and all of our colleagues know why we have the same last name. He also came up to me and had to apologize. So, even if I didn't want to face certain pains, Yah was bringing the pain. The deeper I tried to go into the ministry, the more he brought the pain. Whether it was my pain or the generational pain, I had to face it. And so you can't really run away or run around it. Yah loves us so much that bring it up.
One, just to point something out, one of the things, and I'm sure a lot of people already know this, but the main thing that makes this the worst captivity ever is the job they did on our minds. They wiped our minds, and if you look at the last maybe 50 years, they embedded it the worst, because then they programmed it with something else, like a culture that's designed
a false
to
culture,
destroy you even more,
And I always, in my workshops, and I do workshops even in churches, I say, for Black people, we read the Bible statistically more than anyone else. Statistically, the average Christian in the world today is a woman of African descent. I know that from working with people who do religious demographics. We read the Bible so much, but it's like we're looking in the mirror and we can't even recognize our own face. Wow. And, even if you don't know the African culture, there are just certain things that it's like, this has to be us. Yeah. I mean, who else could it really be when you read certain prophecies? But that's trauma. Trauma will make you forget your identity. And that was something that the world tried to do to me. They tried to put an identity that you're a Black girl, you're from East New York, you're a foster child, you were homeless, you're not supposed to accomplish nothing, you're supposed to be pregnant out of wedlock, not judging, women who were, but all these false, you won't go anywhere, you won't do anything. And when Yah came into my life, it was like, no, every false identity that someone tried to put on me, Yah, for his glory, did the opposite. Because I wasn't supposed to. And
then reading the word, we find out we have the greatest culture ever given to humankind,
I mean, when you work in like law or social justice, most of the laws, even the law that's after 7 years, negative credit entries have to go off your credit report. That's from Jubilee. That's from a law that's from our culture.
Yeah.
Many different things that I see, people prospering over, like no interest loans and things like that. That's from our culture. And so it's only through the power of the Ruach, though, that you can face the pain, take off the false identity that's been put on you, and get your identity rooted in Yah. My identity is not rooted in any accomplishment, because let me tell you, you have a PhD from an Ivy League school, and it ain't gonna make you feel satisfied.
Nope.
I mean, all my diplomas, they in a trunk somewhere. That's not gonna comfort you in the midnight hour. I know people. I have friends that know the language. I have friends that know Aramaic, Greek, Hebrew. I went to school with the girl who translated the Gospel of Mary Magdalene from the Egyptian Coptic to the English. But she can come on here and tell you that's not going to help with certain pain she has. And I love to learn. I love the language. When I teach my classes, I pull on the language. I love to learn and read. That was a saving grace for me as a little girl, reading. But I know that wisdom without healing is just going to be futile. And even our ancestor Solomon said that when he got to the end of his life as the wisest man that ever lived.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, and that's the thing that, because I knew our interview was coming up, and I was like, well, let me really figure out who she is, and like I said, I watched that video, and like you said, it's the spirit, because you recognize, and I think it was a video, I forget which one it was. It was a short one though, and you can hear somebody who, who's been through something, and you can tell when they went through the true process of change, and then you can also detect when people are just kind of stringing you along and there's nothing in there with what they're bringing out, So, yeah, that's definitely.
Well, it's all glory to Yah and to different people in my community, from my grandmother to Lisa Sharon Harper, an author and a Christian author that mentored me, prayed with me, and Mama Angela Malaka Phillips and Esther Brown, sisters who pray, held me in prayer every day in Africa, because seeing orphans in Africa, that could trigger the trauma of what I've been through. But I'm able to stand, strong because of the prayer. Sisters like Mayana Johnson that has been teaching for decades about women in Torah. So I don't look to society or my background for my identity. I look to the word, but I also have had people who could rightly divide the word. And so it's a process, and it's still things that I need to heal of.
And I can I can tell you this, one of the things when I truly when the Spirit truly started pulling me into the Word, I realized that, because I used to wonder, why did God give us all this time, and I get into a sport, I get bored with it, I get into something else, get bored with it, and I used to wonder, what do I got all this time for? But when I realized how much stuff I had to work on in myself, I realized there wasn't enough time. There's so much work to do, And I was like, well, I need to cut TV out and stay focused in this thing, And I said it in one of my videos earlier, another video I did. I'm slowly progressing in getting, deep into the doctrinal stuff and into the language and stuff like that. But it's like I'm so occupied with spiritual development that 80% of what I'm doing in the Word focuses around that, and then the other 20 focus around the more, I guess, doctrinal type stuff.
And I love doctrine. I love history. Like I said, I do love learning the Hebrew language, because there's gems that you may miss if you don't know it. But what I love is to take, history, archaeology, the word, the language, study for years. When I teach something, I usually have been personally studying it and meditating on it for a couple of years. I really don't like to just jump up and teach something automatically. But then take all those elements and then let the Ruach breathe on it, the spirit of wisdom. When you study Proverbs, you're going to see there's a connection between the Ruach HaKodesh and wisdom, who are both personified as women. When you let the Ruach breathe on that, and then you live out whatever you're studying, not being ever learning and never coming into the knowledge of the truth, that's when you have a revelation. And I pray almost every day, give me a divine revelation of your love. Give your children a divine revelation of your love. I think for some of us, it can be dangerous to try to come to Yah through culture first, through identity first, but you don't come through a broken and contrite heart. And I think Yah took me through a certain path. I don't see this huge break. I see when I came into my Hebrew identity in Torah, that was the next elevation. But
Mm.
Yah was doing something in I cannot say that from 10 he wasn't doing something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't lie and say that.
Exactly.
Some people may want me to say that. I just can't. He was doing something. And because I learned how to seek Yah by myself at an early age, when I became a Hebrew and I ran into weird teachings and doctrines, because I'm in New York and we're home of all the weird Hebrew stuff. I apologize on behalf of the New York delegation of Hebrews. Most weird doctrines, you'd be like, oh, that's my hometown. And so, but I could avoid certain things because I had to learn how to press into Yah for myself. My grandmother would have to make me go to sleep because I was looking up the meaning of words at 14. She'd be like, Chika, you got to go to sleep. And I think I want to just impress upon something that I learned from this book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, that was written based on the Bible after a pastor had a nervous breakdown. And sometimes we point at the Christian church, and I've done it, we say they have this issue, they have that issue, never among Hebrews. And now we're seeing that, no, we have some of the same issues too, because we're all, it's a sinful and fallen world. So emotionally healthy spirituality reminds us that you cannot have spiritual growth without emotional maturity. The only indicator of spiritual growth is the evidence of the gifts of the Ruach HaKodesh in your life. Love, joy, peace, patience, long-suffering, kindness, self-control. There's multiple gifts that the Ruach gives. If we're not manifesting those gifts, we can think that we're just going through rituals, but we're not really growing. And I'm all for the feast. Again, I attend Bethel, the house of Yah, a 65-year-old Messianic Hebrew congregation in New York City. My elder has never been to a Christian church. His grandmother was a Hebrew, a Black Pentecostal woman who rolled out. And, she was like, this is not in the word. I'm rolling out. We're all about that. But if we don't get the healing and the wholeness and the maturity, even when we try to keep the feast, we'll be coming together for negative stuff, like auctioning off women or arguing at the feast or arguing on Facebook. And I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. We all get into our flesh, but we should at least be striving to truly face ourselves, because just a Hebrew identity and knowing what tribe you're from, that's not going to be enough.
No, because like the way I say is, if we don't get our minds right first, there's no way we could come together to be in unity with each other. We can't, so that's absolutely right.
And I mean, even in my work in Africa with the African Hebrews, I'm so humbled to even be there. But, they really emphasize prayer. Like, prayer is a big deal. And we have some Hebrew congregations who don't pray. That's why I'm happy to see Mother Malaka, Rabbi Akwete, the family at the Ark, different Hebrews calling prayer and fasting. Because, again, I'm all for the identity. I love researching African Hebrew tribes, but I love it because, one, it gives us validity about why we are who we are. But also, two, it shows the grace of Yah. This is what the gospel is. And gospel only means good news. It's not a Christian word. It's our word. Even in the Psalms, it says the women who Yah declares the word, and the women who spread the gospel or good news are a big host in Psalm 68. The good news is not what the church teaches, but the good news is, yes, redemption is available for the children of Israel that Yah divorced. In Jeremiah, we got a certificate of divorce. But the good news is through Yahshua HaMashiach, we could be married to Yah again. And the stranger who wants to sojourn with us can be saved. We can be redeemed. They can be saved. That's the full good news. And also that there can be justice for the orphan and the widow. It's a holistic gospel. I love when, we find out there's 1,000 Hebrews in Timbuktu yet holding on. And they thought they were the only Hebrews left in the whole world. And then someone got on the internet and they found out they weren't the only ones. That's the grace of Yah. But it's not about just facts. It's about transformation. And yes, we are under the collective curses, but also Yeshua frees us from the curse of the law. So we can have some deliverance now. Through the various prayer ministries, people are being delivered. Physically delivered from bad habits. I'm telling you, I've seen some of the testimonies.
Yeah, that's true. We were talking before we went live about relationships and I guess the obstacles and the breakdowns that are going on today. Speak a little on that if you could.
So I'm not a relationship expert because I'm not married. And so I love to point people to those who are like you, Michael Israel, have some good videos on marriage and preparing for marriage that I sent to some of the family in Ghana, and they love it. Angela Malaka Phillips, a married mother, grandmother, has some good advice. But I will say that if you're not rooted, again, with your identity in Yah, it's going to be hard for you to unite with someone else. Our system is not designed for a Hebrew man and a Hebrew woman to get together and have a Hebrew child. Have you read the news stories that are coming out about how many Black women are dying in childbirth? Even Serena Williams, because the doctors.
What happened?
There is a high percentage of Black women in America dying in childbirth. So there's issues with fibroids that are preventing sisters from becoming pregnant. There's issues when the women go into labor and doctors are not paying attention to them, where the baby dies or the mother dies or both. And then there's issues where, they're making it so the children, as soon as they get here, they're targeted. I use the scripture from Revelation with the woman having the child in the wilderness, and as soon as the child is born, the beast comes out for it. When I would teach about the school to prison pipeline, or what I call the womb to prison pipeline, I would use that scripture. But even in Nigeria, many women are dying in childbirth, a place chock full of Hebrews. So we know in scripture from the story of Moses and the story of Yeshua and Herod, anytime they're trying to prevent a Hebrew child from being born, that Yah is trying to get someone through to help lead and deliver his people. And I'm not talking about another Messiah, but I'm just talking about, there are children who need to be here for what we're about to go into next. And so that's why.
What happened with Serena Williams?
Oh, yes. So when all of these Washington Post and other people started breaking the news about what was happening to Black women who are having birth in hospitals and how there was medical negligence about that, around that, Serena Williams came forward and she said, you know what? I'm a millionaire, but this almost happened to me. You can look it up. Serena and her childbirth, like she had difficulties and the doctors didn't even listen to her.
Wow.
So when we talk about relationships, we also have to be very wise about the environment we're in and why we need to be spiritually girded up, healthy emotionally, healthy mentally, because, we're going to have obstacles as Hebrews that other couples don't have. And I think the basis for any good relationship, whether romantic, congregational, friendship, business among Hebrews, has to be the Yah that we serve. If he's not in the midst, when you look at like the Hebrew word for husband and wife, and Dr. Frank Seekins, who's a Hebrew language teacher, goes into this. When you look at the Paleo Hebrew letters for husband and wife, it's almost like in between is fire. Between those words, and then Yah is in the words as well, because without Yah, the relationship's going to be consumed. And so,
and what's his name? Because that's interesting.
Dr. Frank Seekins, and he specializes in Paleo Hebrew language. He is not a biological Hebrew, but he does have some good information. Okay. We know, and he talks about the husband and the wife and what those letters really mean. But I think
I heard something like that before. Yeah. So. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, and if you could talk a little about the brainwashing of this society through the media, like through a lot of the movies you see, a lot of of course, the music and stuff like that.
Yeah, so from 1999, I've studied and written about academically and for publications, and spoke on the issue of colorism. There's many ways media brainwashes us, but I'm going to lift up that one as a case study. And the reason I started studying it is because I read Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 5 to 6, that says in most English Bibles, though dark am I, yet lovely, or I am dark but comely. But when you look at the Hebrew, but is actually vav, and vav can be translated and, or it can be translated but. And so many Bible translators could not, they chose I am dark but lovely.
Wow.
They could have chose I am dark and lovely because they couldn't manage to say that. I am dark but lovely is an apology for blackness or darkness, but I am dark and lovely is a bold celebration. And when you read the context of the whole Song of Solomon, that sister was bad. She was like, this is my lover, I'm putting my seal on him. Usually a man's supposed to put his seal, a king is supposed to put his seal on you. She said, I'm putting my seal. Like, that sister wasn't playing. People tried to beat her up. She like, look, I want this brother, I'm going. And not in an immoral way. It's a story, it's a poem. I'm not promoting immorality, but what I'm saying is, and nowhere in the text is she apologetic, but when it comes to her darkness, she is. And so I started studying colorism and realized, because I said, well, if y'all's, the word says dark and lovely, how come the world doesn't say that? But usually whatever the world says is totally opposite what Yah says. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the media, they put out these dangerous stereotypes about those of us that look the most African. And I began to study statistics from Stanford that said, dark-skinned black men are arrested more. Or from Villanova University in the New York Times that said darker-skinned women are 12%, will serve 12% more prison time than their lighter-skinned counterparts. Wow. And that's based on studying over 20,000 women prisoners and their prison sentences, or dark-skinned girls of any race or any ethnicity. This can include Indian, this can include Latina. They are 3 times more likely to be suspended for the same infractions that lighter-skinned little girls don't get suspended for. And we think we just have preferences and we just do things based on our own mind, but actually the culture plays a huge role. The culture is media is playing a huge role. That's why people are like, Hebrews, black? No, they're olive color. What person is olive color? Unless, like Pastor Kelly says, the black olive, we don't have green people. And, we have to be very careful, because even when we're in this truth, I see that many of us, our minds have not been renewed. We're just bringing the world over into the truth. And in Romans 12, it says, be not conformed to the world, but renew your mind. You have to go through that process, and you can't renew your mind on your own. You need the miracle working power of the Ruach, because even when you're thinking you're renewing your mind, trust me, those media messages are still in there. Because I see the colorism even in the Hebrew community. Many people and many camps need to apologize. They want to be in Africa. They want to open up outposts in Africa. But for years they were teaching, those are dirty Hamites. Those are not our family. And now everybody's on African Hebrews. But like I said on Hebrews to Negroes radio, if you have ever taught the Hamite doctrine publicly, before you do anything in Africa, you need to apologize, whether you're a leader or whether you're a regular person, because that doctrine actually hurt our community, including us over here, a great deal, because the story wasn't making full sense. I'm sorry. So, without the, West Africa connection, it just seemed like we were making up something.
Because that was something I had learned, and then a brother that I knew who lived over there, he was telling me that, and you could tell me if this is right, but he was saying that what a lot of people don't know over here is that the Shemitic people over there in Africa are much more in abundance than the Hamitic people. Would that be?
Yeah, that would be true. Most of the Hamites are actually in North Africa. The people that, because they look a certain way, we think they're Shemites, is actually the opposite. Most of the dark skinned, broad nosed, big lip Bantus, and I love that look. So when I say these words, I'm using it as a descriptor, not to put down. Most of those are actually the Shemites. And the people that may have a look that's more palatable to most of us, those are mostly the Hamites.
Yeah,
So
because I remember the Limba tribe down there when they tested them. I mean, you'd have people calling them Hamitic people, but.
Or many of the Ewe tribes in Ghana and Togo and Benin and Nigeria, they would have been called Hamites. And so we have to be very careful. And even if someone is a Hamite, they can join as a stranger to Israel. There is rules that say they can join. And so many people, because they have not healed and they haven't faced themselves in the mirror and through Yah learn to love what they see, they're using the Hebrew designation to run away from embracing, blackness. And I know we don't like that term, and I know we don't like African. Yes, these are terms that have been put on us, but we have to be careful because the enemy is so sly. You have to examine your heart and say, am I not saying black because it's a bad term that's been put on us? Or am I not saying black because I want to separate myself from something that white supremacy has deemed negative? Am I not saying African because, African really isn't an ethnicity? It's a continent, and the continent was named many things before that. Is that why I'm not saying African? Or am I not saying African because I grew up seeing Africa only in famine commercials for Feed the Children, and I'm ashamed? Because even when we're in the truth, if you don't stay really close to Yah, you can begin to believe things and subscribe to things and say, I'm doing it because I don't want to use black because I care about my Hebrew identity. But you have to really examine your heart and see if that's the case.
Now, and I got another question, because since you were over there, because what I've been hearing from a lot of people is China's over there real big. And what would you say China's agenda is? I'd imagine resources or...
So Africa is going through a recolonialization process where everyone is trying to carve up Africa.
Wow.
America started AfroCom under Obama, who is half African, and his tribe allowed our Hamitic people. AfroCom is so America can get into Africa. Obama's even, touring over there now. They had all these summits in the White House under him for African presidents and first ladies. So we have AfroCom in America. We have, France still holding heavy control over their people, to the point where even though most of their soccer team was African in the World Cup, when people made the joking meme that was like, oh, Africa won anyway, and put up all the African countries the teams came from, France is like, don't call yourself Africans. And it's like, you don't even accept these people. China is over there too. Russia has had a hand too, but we're going to focus on China. Especially in Ghana, you see that many of the construction jobs are held by Chinese men, while many of the young, strong brothers who are even stronger than the Chinese men they hired don't have jobs. You see that the bus company that's equivalent to our Greyhound, VIP, is Chinese owned.
All right, okay, because what I was under the impression of, and I'm glad you said that, because my impression, I thought China was going in there and just kind of getting buddy-buddy with the government so they could pull the resources out. I didn't know they were going in there and taking over economically also.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're getting buddy-buddy with the government. It came out, Dr. Mumbai, who's a Kenyan Hebrew sister on YouTube, very strong. It leaked that China built the African Union building in Ethiopia. And when they built it, they actually had it so the servers, the internet servers, the computer servers, China was getting reports of everything they were sending. And so China's in Uganda. They're not only just getting buddy-buddy with the government to warm up to something, they've already started owning businesses. Lebanese people owning the supermarkets. You have Chinese people owning the gold mines, some of the gold mines in Ghana, and then basically treating the miners like slaves.
Wow.
Because they pay a local chief a little bit of money. So those of you who donated to Operation Joseph, it is so critical because everyone is scrambling for Africa, whether it's Ashkenazis trying to claim these tribes because Judah gathers, or whether it's, Chinese or Russian businessmen. The focus is on Africa.
I can understand why, because now China has truly come online now, so they got a huge demand for resources, and then Russia, and then of course we still have a huge demand for resources. So that's like you said, it's a mad dash for China. But Ron Dalton, he just came in there. He said shalom to you, and
Shalom, I said shalom.
Okay, he hears you. And he put a statement in there. He said China just bought 2 islands for billions near Kuwait and has offered military protection to that water sea area where oil is shipped to part of Europe and Asia. The deal is for 100 years. The Saudis were feuding with the Kuwait people who also have oil. And the way I look at all these, because I watch these events, and it's just, they picking teams for World War III, basically. We're in the early stages.
And many of the prophecies in Daniel about Gog and Magog, and some people say one of those is Russia. Russia tampered with the election, and they tampered, and I'm going to bring this up because it relates to us, who consider ourselves conscious Black people. Russia put out fake social media pages that were like Black Power pages. They probably got some fake Hebrew pages too, and they made little memes about people not voting. And you don't want to vote because that's your decision, that's your right. But when someone manipulates a whole community, that's wrong. And so even as Hebrews, I see Hebrews teaching doctrines based on memes. If you don't know the person behind the social media page, like that's why I share my testimony, I share pictures, I share up to date, because I'm a real person. Whatever I can't say being a real person, it don't need to be said, because, and I know some people for safety, they can't be transparent, and I respect that. We got to use wisdom, but we also have to use wisdom when we're just passing this meme scholarship. That's how the whole Hamite thing propagated. From Babylon to Timbuktu was out, that talked all about Hebrews in West Africa. We just didn't, we're just doing gossip scholarship. But also, I want to just mention that in addition to, what Russia and Kuwait are doing, America planned to open a military base in Ghana. And someone leaked it to the press, and the people protested. Even many African Americans talked about it. I think Watchman's wife, Deborah, talked about it.
Yeah,
I
heard it because I used to be in the Air Force, and I heard about it a while back that they were, and they still are, getting ready to open Air Force bases in Africa. And I was like, well, why are they doing that? But I see why now.
And we have to ask ourselves as a people, if the world are running towards one place, why are we running in the opposite direction, saying we're indigenous to here and we have no connection there? We really have to ask ourselves, even if some of those messages are being put out by our enemies, because I think we have lived the closest to this enemy, to elite whites, even more so than poor white folks. We had to take care of their children. We had to be in their bedrooms, in their kitchens. So we know how certain elite people work more than any other group, because we were in intimate spaces with them. And if we're over there or just building with the family over there, we can tell them, watch out. They're about to play you. Watch out for that. Don't make that deal. So you see, we can help each other. They can help us with the Hebrew culture. And we can help them even navigating this scramble for Africa, because we had to live under this domination 24/7. I know colonialism was real, but I mean having to actually clean someone's house, raise the oppressor's children, that's an intimacy that many people don't have.
Yeah. We know how they think, in and out. Yeah.
Sometimes more than they do.
Yeah. Talk a little bit, if you could, about the about the police violence here, and you're in New York. How do you? Because I know every time I see one of these police shootings happen, I try to get the same word out, and I tell people, because I've worked around cops before, and I know their policies, and while it's not a written policy, their policy towards us is comply or die. If you don't comply with what they're telling you, they're gonna just light you up. So if you could speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, so as I stated, like for my career, I was a community organizer, and I was actually an executive director of a group called Faith in New York. Was with them for 4 years, and it was a coalition of 100 congregations, including my own Hebrew congregation, Torah only Hebrews. And what we worked on was changing legislation, and one of the issues we worked on was police brutality. And what I found is, one, the highest rate of people entering prison for the first time are African American women. The highest people who are currently in prison are African American men, but I'm talking about new inmates are African American women. They're really ramping up the women. It's like they made all the money they could make off of the men. Now they want to make it off of the women. I can show you multiple videos of fully pregnant, 8-9 months, visibly pregnant African American women being beaten to the ground by cops. When I would do organizing trainings, I would play the video from Rochester, New York, of Brenda Hardaway. You can go tonight, type in Brenda Hardaway to YouTube, and you will see them restraining her big husband, huge brother, restraining him so they could beat her to the ground while she was pregnant.
See, I can't, certain stuff I can't watch. I get too mad.
If you know you can't handle it, because when
I go out and punch somebody in their mouth.
And it won't even be their fault. But I say that because the police, while they were getting the brothers through the front door, they're getting the sisters through the back door. Police brutality is a huge issue. We were, Akai Gurley was shot in the projects I grew up in because there wasn't a light. They never changed the light in the stairs. And then they sent some rookie young Asian man to a tough neighborhood to do the beat. But we have to realize, prophetically what is happening, because they're really ramping up because they see us waking up. And then we also have to understand, in many places, they're trying to gentrify. I worked on a housing advocacy, and when they gentrify a neighborhood in New York, the first step is increasing the police presence. When I was living in East New York during the crack epidemic, when it was gunshots a couple of times a week, you couldn't pay a police officer to come. Then when all the crime this year, thank y'all, we've had no gun violence in East New York in a whole year. No one died of gun violence in a whole year. But there's police everywhere because they're gentrifying the neighborhood.
And that's any city USA right now. Like because I know people in certain areas in Miami. Like you name the city, especially here in Jacksonville, they are like there's this big move. They're all coming back into the city.
Yes.
And maybe it's y'all setting it up so that when Russia bombs all these cities, all them is
I think Yah is a Yah of justice. In seminary, I focused on justice in the Word, and especially the Hebrew Bible, the so-called Old Testament. Justice is all over everywhere. So Yah is going to give us justice, but we have to be aware of the times we are living in. I know some people say, well, I'm not going to pay attention to the summit Trump had with Putin, but we need to be watchmen and watch women on the wall, because all of this lines up with prophecy. Reinhold Niebuhr, a famous American theologian, said you should read the Bible in one hand and a copy of the New York Times in the other.
Wow.
What we really need in Israel is people who can really look at current events, and we have them, but really look at current events and see how they line up prophetically. We need that. Again, this goes into the healing. If you're always trying to find excuses to check out from what is happening, oh, that's an agenda, that's a false flag. Yes, sometimes it is a false flag, but you still need to know about it. We need to know.
And the big thing is, it's like, for instance, because I see from the military aspect and looking at it from a big picture aspect, man, when you see what Russia and China are doing and really study that thing out, what they're doing militarily, what they're doing economically, you see we're on, like, there's no way of turning away from some big war happening, and you could almost calculate when it's going to go down within a couple of years,
And also, Trump signed an executive order saying 2019 is the 400 years of slavery. So we have, and when you study how long we were in Egypt, it doesn't add up to 400 years, whether you're counting the time we were enslaved or just our whole sojourn in Egypt. But this is why salvation and being filled with the Ruach and healing now is important.
Yep.
You have to work now while it is day, because night will come when no man can work.
Yeah.
This is why it's important to know Yah for yourself, not through your favorite YouTube teacher, not through someone's ministry, not through your moray, not through your camp leader or your elder or your rabbi, but you have to know Yah for yourself. And this is why salvation is so important. If you don't know Yah as your Savior through Yahshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, then you need to get on your knees and ask him to come into your life. Confess that you're a sinner. Ask him to forgive you. Spend time in prayer and fasting. Y'all may be calling so many Hebrews to fast because we might have to, during our wilderness time, we might not be able to eat as much.
Yep.
And there's going to be a greater exodus that's going to make the first exodus look like games. And a big miracle happened with the parting of the Red Sea and the plagues on Egypt. If you're afraid of miracles and signs and wonders, now in the wilderness, that's how we're going to survive. And this is why, I love the scholarship about Hebrews in Africa. I will continue to push that. But I also want to make it clear that we right now, while it's still day, need to truly connect to Yah through his son. We cannot play around with this salvation, because guess what? A day is going to come when we're not going to be able to do lives on Facebook.
Nope.
We're not going to be able to post on YouTube.
And we're going to have to be able to come together. But if people ain't got their minds right, you can't come together with it.
We're going to have to be able to come together when we can and have the right spirit. But there may be times when you may not be able to come together. Yeah. Are you going to know how to pray for yourself? Are you going to know how to study for yourself? Are you going to be able to endure to the end? Because it's he or she who endures to the end that will be saved.
That's true. That is so true. Sister Only, this was an awesome interview. I know when we were planning this thing out this morning, you're like me. You're ruthless with your time. You budget it out, and that's imperative.
I have to.
Hey, and I'm the same way. Like the Shabbat is truly a set apart day for me because of all the stuff I got to deal with through the week, man. I drag myself into the Shabbat. But if you could, because I see it looks like the sun's down out here, could you you have anything you want to conclude this with?
Yes, I first want to thank you, Michael Israel, for being one of the first people to speak and get out the word about Operation Joseph. And I want to just thank everyone who prays for Operation Joseph, Hebrew Nation Building. I want to thank my family at Hebrews to Negroes and Bethel House of Yahweh. And family, if you don't get anything else from this live, one, I want to say Shabbat Shalom. It is almost sundown in New York. Yeah. So welcome to the Shabbat. And I hope your rest is peaceful. But if you don't get anything else from anything I said, if you don't know Yah through his son Yahshua, please get to know him today through prayer and reading his word. Prayer doesn't have to be extravagant. It can just be opening your mouth and telling Yah how you feel, confessing that you're a sinner, asking him to forgive you, and telling him that you will repent and try to live right. And if you don't get anything else either, it's deeply important to face the pain in your life and heal from that pain through the power of the Ruach and Yah. Yah is powerful to heal, to deliver, and redeem. We just have to take him up on his offer. And so with that, I just say Shabbat Shalom, family.
All right. And real quick, I just want to, while Sister Only's on here, go back through the events that we talked about earlier, where you can see Sister Only. You can see her speak. Again, she's going to be in Atlanta, August 11th, 2018 at 12 p.m. The women's conference. I'm gonna be in Atlanta. I'm gonna be doing the men's conference the Friday, that Friday. Um, and she's gonna be in New York City and in New Jersey at the Reclaiming the Throne conference. We talked about all this in the beginning, and like I said, and she has a book coming out in August. Okay, and don't forget about the Operation Joseph. Okay.
And you can donate to that on GoFundMe. And Josh and Collins and I will be doing a video with all the details of where the funding has gone. And those are some pictures of people who received the funding and how they're using it. Also, Mother Malaka Phillips and I are calling a fast from next Tuesday to Thursday, and we're praying for revival in Israel. And there'll be different prayer lives on Facebook on those days. So it's just praying and fasting, liquid fast. And by revival, we don't mean anything Christian. We mean that Yah will heal us, that Yah will fill us with his Ruach, and that Yah will help us to truly repent as the Hebrew people.
Okay. So with that said, I think it was a good interview. I see a lot of people in the comments. They are sending up hearts and saying good interview. I think they really enjoyed it.
Family.
And I appreciate you coming on here, Sister Only, and look forward to doing more interviews. And I look forward to meeting you, I guess, in Atlanta and in New York, meeting you in person. And I know my wife is excited about going to the conference and finally getting to meet you, so that'll be awesome. But I hope everybody enjoyed this, and we're going to wrap this up. And with that said, Shabbat Shalom, y'all.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, too.